Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video, and this video is me basically responding to those people who want to know how did I get involved in racing and motorsport. So I guess the first main point here is that I was a lot more fortunate than others in the fact that I got to go-karting when I was 8 years old, and off the back of that I was karting for 7 to 8 years, winning 5 national championships on the way up, which is good. And throughout that period, you know, you think you're going to be a racing driver, it's a certainty, maybe in Formula 1 one day. You're so young and naive, that's what you are thinking at points, but when reality hits at the age of 16, or even before that, then you know it's tough to take. And so when I got to the ripe old age of 17 years old, before I had my driver's license in the UK, my family decided to put everything they had, or pretty much everything they had, into one race weekend in Formula Ford 1600. Now, it's not the most expensive of motorsports, but for an average family it's a lot of money, so it was a big gamble. We thought something would come of it, again probably being quite naive because motorsport's basically impossible to get noticed now, but we thought we'd give it a go, and we decided to do a race weekend in British Formula Ford at Donington Park. Okay, so you can see I'm on the warm-up lap, and to be honest with you, I must be frank, I was absolutely myself, and you know, I suppose I give reason to really. I had the thought in the back of my mind that all my dad and mum's money was in this. You know, it's so easy to have a crash, especially when you've only had an hour in the car, or any car, because obviously this is my first time in a racing car, so I wasn't doing anything with any conviction. It was all very nervous, and when you're doing anything with nerves, or you're not fully 100%, then it's never going to end too well, and you'll see exactly that later on. But if we skip to the race start, it was my first ever race start. I'd never practiced it before. I got told what to do, but it's still like very confusing when you're, you know, all the pressure's on, you got everyone watching you, and you're around other cars. So going into turn one, I'm like, just take it easy, you know, don't get involved with any tangles. So I still had a bit of a smart head on me, considering there was a load of nerves. I mean, I was physically shaking, I think, on the grid, if I remember correctly, and this is quite a sketchy circuit at the best of times. You know, there's no runoffs, it's all grass, so if you're off, you're off. But I make a couple of moves up in the first few corners, which is good, and you know, you can clearly see the car's nowhere near its limit. And that's because I've just not got enough experience or confidence to take it near its limit. But luckily the field, it's not like Formula 1 level, so or it wasn't back then anyway, so it was a decent sized grid though, 30 plus cars on the grid, so it's a lot of cars to try and navigate your way through. Some of them were rapid, and some were fairly quick, and some were fairly slow, so perfect for someone coming up the ranks to kind of learn from. But this weekend truly, I honestly say this was a one-off, or we thought it would be anyway. It led on to a couple of more things, but at the time it was like a do or die, let's see how it goes type thing. We haven't got enough money to do anything else, so we make a big move there going into the chicane, and then run completely, we brake too late basically and run wide onto the gravel, lose a couple more places on the exit, and yeah, that was a big heart and mouth moment, to be fair. I remember that so like distinctly. And we got gravel flinging off the car, tyres are a bit cold, so we just again take it easy. But we're back straight on it, going into the final corner of the first lap, and we're up the inside of that orange car. And this corner is tricky on the sim, it's tricky in real life. There's just a real lack of grip because of that off camber like section of it. And so I mean, I don't know what position we're in, but we're clearly doing well. We've made about, I don't know, 8 or 9 places up on that opening lap. And the car itself it's not actually that fast. It's only a 1.6 litre Ford engine, and it's got a H-pattern gearbox, so you are heeling and towing. The gears are really tricky because that cockpit is so tight that your arm is constantly chafing on, you know, the roll bar or the chassis itself, other bits and pieces, so you end up with blisters on your hands. So going into the old hairpin, you can see there I've completely missed a gear, and that's so easy to do in this car on upshifts and on downshifts as well. And if you're flying into a corner in neutral, then you've got no engine braking, and it's kind of scary because the car makes this like numb sound that you can't hear anything, and you're going really fast into a corner with no engine braking. So when I was 17, it confused me more than it does now, so I'd almost go into panic mode, but for that particular example, I managed to get away with it. So going, yeah, we're carrying on into the race, we're catching the pack in front, and I believe my teammate, I was driving for a team called Oldfield Motorsport at the time, my teammate, an experienced driver called, I think his name was Ryan Hayes, and he was a bit ahead of me at this point, only a few cars though, and we were catching him in the pack, so we're fairly on it. You know, we're feeling good. We're past the most nervous stage, which is always the race start, and trying to get into a rhythm. You can see the track map there, clearly Donington Park. I wasn't really looking at that because it doesn't really help. You know where you're going. And you can see some cars there went defensive and got a really slow exit. So again, biding my time. The car felt quite balanced for me. I mean, an hour in the car is not enough time to figure out what setup you want. So the practice session on the Friday was wet, and that was only about half an hour. As you can see there on the main straight, we missed a gear on the upshift, so we lost quite a lot of time to the others. And the way that happens is, you know, going from second to third, it's quite an awkward movement on the wrist. So if you go from second to first by accident instead of second to third, you get that over rev, and you're not going to be accelerating anymore, and you can damage the engine. And the Craner curves was awesome, I must admit. I mean, even in a car like this, you know, almost full throttle, really off camber, downhill, and the view you get going over the crest at Donington Park, you know, coming from karting into racing cars, everything's so much bigger, and there's more people watching, and it's just, it was amazing. The whole experience was amazing, I must admit. But you know, you'll see in a minute, it doesn't end with a happy ending, as all great stories do. So coming onto the back straight now, you can see we're right behind a car. We're in the slipstream, and it does make a difference. You know, on the sim it does, in real life it does. It's a known fact. Going into the braking zone, we get the move done pretty nicely, to be fair. We have a little bit of an oversteer moment, but we use the track limits to our advantage, as, you know, all great drivers do, of course. And we carry on. We made a place up there, so we're kind of happy with that. And again, catching the next pack, the hairpin was really tricky. You know, watching this back now, I'm such a better driver now than I was back then. Just, and honestly, I will say it from sim racing, because you can practice stuff relentlessly on the sim, and you can see clearly I'm nowhere near the car's limit, and clearly the people around me aren't either. But you know, driving within yourself at 17 years old, at the time you feel like you're Ayrton Senna, and you're clearly nowhere near that level. And then going into turn one is probably the defining moment of the race. As you can see, I have just spun into the gravel. Really angry with myself. If you rewind that and listen carefully, you can hear myself screaming the F word. Really angry, really angry. But the reason that happened was because I went into the corner, missed the gear on the downshift from third to second, was in neutral, and then you engage a gear without blipping the throttle. The rear end snaps because all the revs just come in at once, and it just spins on you. And when it spins, it's very hard to catch. So the marshals helped me. They end up pushing me out, which is good. I can get the engine restarted because it does have a starter motor on it. And I end up carrying on in the race, which is good. Right then, so we're out of the gravel, we're continuing the race, and as you can see, going into the old hairpin, we spin again. It wasn't on the same lap, it was a few laps later, and we've done exactly the same thing. So we've gone into the corner, we've gone into neutral by accident, and then mid-corner, when we've still got a lot of speed, we've gone bang, select the gear, and the revs have just gone mental, and the rear end's locked and come round. So it honestly feels like a test session, you know. I know it was a race, and at the start it was a race, but I'm still getting to grips with the car, and having only an hour's track time in the car before, it just wasn't enough time, and it was quite naive to think you could just jump in and be quick. And you'll see later on, actually, in the race, I was quick in the end. It was just the mistakes, and to think you can go in there and make no mistakes at an age like that, where you don't even have a road licence and don't really understand how gears or engines work, it was very naive, but a massive learning curve. And I look back at these videos now with, you know, squinting like, what was I doing? But also with a bit of pride in the fact that we gave it a go. So later on into the race, naturally, with all these incidents, you're going to get lapped. So going into the chicane, the guy locks up and overtakes us to lap us for the first time. And at this point, it's a learning exercise. So and we get lapped again, of course. And I think the leaders' pack was about 3 or 4 of them. So we decide to try and see if we can stay with them. We don't, but this next few minutes I'm learning quite a lot. Obviously, you know, the first priority is let everyone through without crashing into them with my mirrors, but the second thing is to see what they're doing, see where they're braking, what lines are they taking, and can I learn anything from this? Because if it isn't the last time I drive a car in a race, then I want to know how I can be better. So as you can see, they pull away pretty quickly, and they, you know, being the leaders and the experience they had, and you know, if that was going to happen. But I did learn quite a lot from the few seconds I was right behind them. And the next few laps I push on, you'll see I get faster and faster and faster, and I'll actually show you one of the fastest lap I did in the entire race. So here's my fastest lap of the race, and it's behind one of the leaders, so we got someone to aim for, which is always good in racing. Into turn 1, you're in 4th gear, you go down to 2nd, and you're on the power. As you can see, I get a lot of oversteer mid-corner, but in these cars, oversteer is your friend in many ways. Sliding can be fast if you do it in the right way. Obviously, the way I did it earlier was not that fast because I ended up in the gravel, so just take note of that. Going into the old hairpin, you're down 1 gear from 4th to 3rd, on the power again, and we use a lot of time out. You can see this lap's a bit more towards the limit. It's not on the limit, but I'm definitely trying a few new things and pushing harder, which, you know, coming into the end of the race, I thought, we paid all this money, we may as well, or I may as well try my hardest, no matter how it goes. And then you're down 1 gear for that right-hander, going up the hill into the next right-hander. You stay in 3rd the whole way through this section, and then try and take the tightest line through this right-hander on the power, flat out, up to 4th, and just let the car do its work all the way into the chicane. Now I think you brake at this next board here, brake down 2 gears, let the car roll in, use the track limits on that the second part of the chicane as much as you can. I'm pretty sure they told us in the driver's briefing not to use that, but obviously I didn't listen too much to that. And brake at the board, we're in 3rd gear, down to 2nd, and then down to 1st, I believe, for the hairpin. I can't remember if it was 1st or 2nd. It's hard to listen to the gear shifts to just get an idea of what gear I'm in, but then stay in 2nd all the way up this little straight into the final corner, brake fairly late, and then get, as you say, slide the car into the corner on the power straight away, and then up to 3rd gear before the finish line. And that was my fastest lap. And if we look at the timesheets, I'm pretty sure my fastest lap was a 44.1, which I was actually pretty happy with over the weekend, or yeah, over the couple of days I was there. That was a good time in my eyes. You can see the fastest lap somewhere is a 41.3. I think they had track infringements though, so if you look at the leader, 42.1, that's 2 seconds off on a big track like that in a small car. You know, I'll take that. I mean, the guys, this is the top Formula 4 championship, so to be only 2 seconds off in my opening race with all the other stuff that was going on, happy days, I think. And, you know, car comes into it quite a lot, whether the engines were equal or not, you know, in my favour or in their favour, who knows, but you just can't tell. But if you look at the 44.1, it's, you know, mid-pack pace, and that's good. I thought that was a success in that on the pace front. The result obviously wasn't very good, and the mistakes weren't very good, but, you know, a massive learning curve, and arguably the most I've learned in a 20-minute period in my entire life. As you can see, going down the pit lane, I'm not a happy man. I drive past, I think it was my girlfriend and my mum who came to watch me, and we live south, so it was quite a long journey, and I'm just nodding my head in pure anger, I think, from what I can remember. Pulling into the scrutineering area, if I can get my words out properly today, and yeah, getting out the car. I'm not inconsolable, but I'm definitely not a happy bloke by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, the audio wasn't really good enough to catch what I was saying to the one of the engineers of the team, but that is my first ever experience in a race car, which now was half a decade ago. It was 5 years ago. So a lot's changed since. I'm happy for those experiences though, and I'm glad I could share them with you on my YouTube channel. Right then, so if you liked the video, please let me know in the comments below. If you hated the video, again, let me know, because I do have lots of stuff I can do like this from my racing career, but if it's not going to interest anyone, there's no point doing it, of course. Like the video maybe, and sub to the channel if you already haven't. And of course, if you want to know more about me, or if you want to get in touch, just follow me on Twitter and Insta at VeloceJames. But I guess until the next video, I'll see you soon.